So I'd like to start today with a cold open before the cold open. A sort of cold open, if you will.
How does that work?
Well, I've been putting a lot of thought into how we can boost our ratings and subscriber base, and I think I've figured out what's missing. Ready? We haven't been turning the charm on properly.
Really?
So here's how we're going to do it.
Is that what you think?
Yeah. So I'm going to put the charm on, right? And you'll do like bow chicka wow wow music, or some sort of
lounge jazz.
Yeah,
perhaps?
exactly. Perhaps lounge jazz, and you'll just feel it. Yeah. Okay. Ready? Hi, hey, listener. Hi. You're looking right. If you don't subscribe and rate our podcast, I'm going to destroy everything you hold dear. I will call down the legions of Hades and unleash unholy bedlam upon your household. It will be mayhem, cats and dogs living together. Mass hysteria. Quel dommage. Please rate and subscribe.
That's what you think's going to do it, huh?
If it doesn't do it, I will be a very shocked young man. Right, on to the cold open. So today, I'd like to start off with a conversation. I'm not sure that we've had this one before. Stop me if you've heard this one before. Horror movies, I feel, can lose their bite once you've seen a parody of them, right? I haven't seen today's movie, which makes this episode a little bit different.
Right.
But, I've seen a Family Guy parody of it. I've seen multiple parodies of this movie. So
yeah.
I have an idea, like, what's going on there.
There's this whole exchange of dialogue in Scary Movie that they lift entirely from Scream.
Yeah.
So that every time I see the corresponding scene in Scream,
Yeah.
I always think of that.
Right.
And there's all that stuff of like Ghostface kind of going, I'm in the house. And in Scary Movie, he's like hiding behind the couch and you can see his feet. I can see your feet. Wait a second.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying.
It's just like it's very odd to me to watch a film that I've never seen before, but that I've seen parodies of. So like, I'm probably just thinking about Family Guy, all the time. But there's an interesting line here that can be drawn between like gently ribbing a genre and being flat out silly. Like for me, it's the difference between something like Scream and Scary Movie, where Scream is sort of an homage but with comedic undertones. And it's very tongue-in-cheek in some of its, blatantly flaunting horror movie rules in your face. Right. And something like Scary Movie, which is there to take the piss out of that and ruin it, right?
Which is what I said in the last Action Hero episode, actually. When you're talking about the fine line between a parody and a spoof, and if a spoof is spoofing a parody, basically, you're kind of sort of doubling down on the comedy, and maybe it cancels itself out.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the
because what would you say True Lies is?
True Lies is a comedy
action movie,
thriller action movie kind of thing. Right. I don't think it's specifically out to spoof specific things. It does.
Spy Hard is out to spoof that with like the horse scene, right?
But there are comedic elements that kind of deconstruct the action movie a little bit within True Lies, whereas a movie like Spy Hard or Loaded Weapon 1 will take entire scenes or setups from a movie and reconstruct them for a comedy set piece. Yeah. Which is, it's a completely different thing, which is why I think that the Naked Gun movies are much more interesting in that respect as spoofs, because they are sort of creating set pieces out of the situations that they've written, as opposed to lifting things wholesale from other movies, which is where the spoof went downhill. Like it was basically just like, hey, that's that scene from that movie. Yeah. And it just went on and on and on into like 2005, 2006. It just sort of went the way of the gun. Yeah. It just died out. And thank God, because nobody was doing anything original. I think Austin Powers was the last good spoof. Yeah. That's all. That's all you got? Yep. All right.
Just wanted a quickity-do.
A quickity-do. Yeah. Okay, so maybe it's time to roll the episode. No, fuck. Maybe it's time to no, that's not it.
What movie are we watching? Or what do we have today? No, hang on a minute. Jesus Christ! We need sleep. Someone write a very stern letter to our children, please.
Yes, they can't read yet.
Let's have an episode.
Oh no.
What's our seat number? Hello and welcome to What's Our Seat Number, the movie podcast that puts the lotion on its skin. It rubs the lotion on its skin or else it gets the hose again. I've just ruined the intro to a potential Silence of the Lambs episode if we ever do one. Or I've created the lowest rated Evian skin cream commercial in history. Anyhow, I'm Sai, a 3D artist and potential lunatic that measures a 9.7 on the Richter scale of lunatics. Honestly, I'm just a stroke away from another rant about something or other that my co-host and editor will have to cleverly cut around in order to stop the men in the white coats from giving me an enema first and then putting me in a straitjacket. Speaking of things that just slide down without any resistance, my brother and co-host has just slid down in his chair as he doesn't know what to do with himself after my intro. It's professional sexy jewel thief and artisan bread burner, it's Johnny Cross!
Hey. Good morning.
Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm alright.
Yeah.
I'm a little tired.
Me too.
Oh, you look like shit.
Oh my god, you look worse.
I know.
You look like the shit on the bottom of my shoe.
I look like the thing that slides down without any resistance. We like to keep it classy here at Wasn't.
We do indeed. Do you have any movie news for us? Because I slacked off this week and decided to work for money.
Do you want to just jump into movie news?
Yeah, that's what we do, don't we?
Well then it's movie news.
Movie news.
Hello and welcome to the 6 o'clock Muse. If it isn't 6 o'clock where you are, always remember that while it is 6 o'clock somewhere, you don't need an excuse. The horrors of day-to-day life are enough to open a bottle of gin and drink yourself into a liver failure-induced coma. I am your host, Hans Off the Goods. Coming up next, these stories and more. Child in hospital after lazy parent catapults entire watermelon through his face. Pigeons gather in Times Square smoking cigarettes and plotting the coming of Satan, and Christopher Walken will star in new Cockney sexual reimagining of My Left Foot, Me Left Nad. This is The Muse. Did you know that they're making a Neverending Story remake?
I saw the posters, yes.
It's currently being shopped around different networks and studios for some reason, having trouble settling on a home.
Why is that? Because I was under the impression that it was part of Disney Plus.
Is it? Because
Apparently so. It says Walt Disney Presents.
Oh yeah?
Or not Walt Disney, but Disney something.
I mean, you can look it up and you can prove me wrong if you want. I don't care. It's only news. I don't have to have sources or confirm anything.
Shut the window. I don't care.
Soda.
Yeah, it's Disney, apparently. I mean, the rumors are that it's Disney. I don't think it's had an official announcement yet, but anyway.
Because the last piece of news that I saw was that it was still trying to find a home, and there are several streaming services, in talks. Keanu Reeves is confirmed to be returning as John Constantine in a sequel to the 2005 movie Constantine.
Didn't see that coming.
See, I really think that at some point there needs to be like a cut-off point before you can make a sequel to something.
I don't know. I mean, look, I'm sure that we're going to watch it, right? But
I didn't even like the first one that much.
Oh, really? I'm looking at you with disdain right now.
Okay.
No, but it's no. You're fine. You're entitled to your opinion.
Thank you.
As long as it
aligns with yours.
With mine. So perhaps there should be a cutoff point. I don't know. It's not about. Are you talking about the age, or are you talking about the fact that people are constantly trying to revive old franchises?
Yeah, like if I were to take the whole Firefly thing, right? That there are still people online who are going, "Oh, bring it back," and it's like maybe in the first 5 years or so after it was cancelled, maybe. Yeah. But they all moved on and did other things, and now they're older, and it's not. It's move on. Like there's been a movie which it's very, very depressing what happened, but. It's not even very, very depressing. It's a TV show. Things get cancelled, things you like, and things that, you don't like and don't care about get cancelled, and then you don't hear about it because you don't like it or care about it. So
I think perhaps Keanu needs to take a break, because after Matrix Resurrections and Bill and Ted Face the Music and the possible new upcoming sequel to Chain Reaction or something like that, he needs to take a breather.
He likes money. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, but he's garnered a lot of goodwill over the past few years. Everybody loves him, me included. So he'll do what he wants, and we'll line up and pay for it.
Absolutely.
But I think that in general, the multiverse is what caused all of this stuff. Without No Way Home, people wouldn't suddenly be going, hold on a second, we've had a Constantine, a TV version of Constantine, but now we can bring back the previous Constantine, and we can bring back Brandon Routh as Superman, and we can bring back we can bring back Michael Keaton as Batman.
Yeah, there's a lovely novelty, but like the spoof, it will also go the way of the gun eventually. The other thing is...
Sure, the superhero movie will go the way of the gun. Spielberg called it a long, long time ago, and people are starting to get real fatigue now, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's still been going strong for a very, very long time. But if you think about it, the MGM musical, the Western, the teenage stalk and slash, in the 90s, all of those fads went on for a very long time before they died.
It's interesting because there are some fads that you're sure that are going to die and they just don't, like the zombie genre in video games, or the Call of Duty games, or Assassin's Creed. Just stop, make new.
I mean, look, as long as there's a real idea, like No Way Home found an interesting way to bring those two guys back, but I'm saying those two guys, I'm talking about the two Spider-Men, but obviously the villains came back as well. Yeah. But I think that it's kind of tenuous when you think about it, but it's just such a likable film that you just let it go. You
don't mind it so much.
But I think that in general, I would prefer to see some new takes on things. Like I would rather see a brand new Constantine. I'd like to see a new version of, like for example, what J.J. Abrams did with Star Trek. I'd like to see that rather than see old things sort of rehashed and see all of my heroes suddenly be old and less able to do what they did, 20 years ago.
I think that they should have taken Matt Ryan and just done a movie with him, because I thought that he was a great Constantine.
He was a very good Constantine, yeah.
And he had the accent and everything. And he just wore that trench coat. Anyway, Brendan Fraser is making a very welcome comeback to our movie screens in the movie The Whale. He's been around doing other things, but this is something that garnered a little bit of attention because he got a 6-minute standing ovation at the Venice International Film Festival where they screened the movie, and he was very moved by it. Yeah. I think that the article titles that describe him as in tears and unable to compose himself are a little over-exaggerated, and may we just say from this very well-established Muse organization, bollocks. That was the Muse.
Movie news.
All right, Johnny, that's it from me. What have you got?
Well, back by popular demand, it's Stop Hey, What's That Sound? I'm excited. Halloween's coming up, and we're going to start reviewing Halloween movies. Last year, we managed to do 2, I believe. We did Ghostbusters and Hocus Pocus, and this year we're going to try and get a few more in. So anyway, these are sounds that are from either scary movies or scary scenes in movies, and they are either people screaming or people laughing maniacally.
Lovely.
So here we go. Here's your first question.
I know the music and I know the laugh. Bollocks.
Oh, you can do this.
I know I can do it. Don't do that. That makes it worse.
You can do it. You want to play it again? Does it help?
No, it just makes it bury itself further down, but you can play it again. I know it. I know it.
Oh, yeah.
It's Gary Oldman. It's Dracula.
That is correct.
Oh, that's why you were doing that. That's why you were doing that.
Yes.
Thanks for the clue.
There we go.
Where he kills the baby. Or the brides kill the baby. I could see it. I could see the red in the scene. I could see the whole thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Got it eventually.
Okay, so this is your second question. Here we go.
Is that Sigourney Weaver?
That is Sigourney Weaver
That is Ghostbusters 2 or
Correct.
1? 2.
Correct.
It could be either.
Yeah.
Is that when Janos takes Oscar?
It is indeed.
Wow.
Very good.
That was
I was worried for you for a second, but you did it.
You did it.
You did it. Here we go. Very good. You're 2 for 2. Okay. This is your third question. Here we go.
Again? So
let's break it down. What can you hear aside from him screaming?
The Beatles.
No, it's not Beatles.
There's something like splitting him open.
It's not that. It's much simpler.
No, I don't know.
It's water.
Water?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I know. Oh, I know what that is. Hang on. Oh, I just watched this. Like, it's Jaws, isn't it? It's the end
Jaws.
where he's what's the sea guy. It's gone. Why is the name gone?
It's not dependent on you getting a point whether or not you get the name, but it's Quint.
It's Quint. Yeah. Where he slides down, the shark bites him. It's when it bites into it. He goes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I just watched this. I should have gotten that immediately. I thought maybe it was from the Mummy and the Beatles were like eating someone. Oh, that is gnarly. It goes on for a little while, doesn't it? And then he just sort of floats off.
So the gargling is, when I saw that as a kid, that's what I remembered.
Yeah. As the light leaves his eyes.
Yeah.
I know that one as well.
Yeah.
Laughs are the worst.
It's a fairly...
That's an easy one.
Yeah.
The annoying thing is that once I know it, I'm going to get pissed off.
Right. Can sort of nudge you in the right direction. And
I suppose, but it's just cheating. It's just cheating. You can direct me to whether it's...
Genre?
A genre, yeah.
Genre is children's.
It's a Disney movie.
Correct. One we know very, very well.
Yeah. Shut the fuck. It's Jafar when he goes into the hourglass and laughs at it, right?
Yes, it
with
is.
his reflection.
Let's have the gods extend him an invitation to the palace. Shall we?
Wow.
Very good.
I mean, not really, because the minute you said like children's, I was like, I thought it was Disney before. I thought it might have been Scar or something.
No,
and I was like, nah.
Yeah, I mean, these are very. It's hard. It's a hard game. You're 4 for 4. Here we go.
Whoa! That is definitely the Mummy. That's Brendan Fraser going, whoa! And shooting
Absolutely.
him.
Here we go. This is the full thing.
There you are! You could play hide and seek! Come on, let's get out of here! Whoa!
This is such a good movie. I love this movie.
This is question number 6.
Those are the Wheelers.
These are things that you cannot forget easily, ladies and gentlemen.
The Gnome King
The Return
doesn't
Tours.
allow chickens anywhere in Oz.
Who's the Gnome King?
Who's the Gnome King?
Who is the Gnome King?
Oh, I'll behave.
You're 6 for 6. Okay, this one might give you a little bit of a challenge.
I'm pretty sure it will. One more time? Okay, I'm gonna make a guess, but it's a hard one, okay? Is it Temple of Doom, where he's holding the heart and it's burning in his hand?
It is Temple of Doom when he's holding the heart and it's burning in his hand.
I get 25 million doubloons! There are some nightmare sounds that you just can't get out of your head.
Yes, indeed. Question number 8.
Okay, that's Pennywise.
Yeah, I knew that you would get that one in a second.
Come join the clownets. You'll float down here.
We all
We'll float down here. Yes, we do.
Some of these films are terrifying.
They really are. That is a scary movie.
Okay, speaking of childhood sounds that you'll never forget, here's your final question.
Oh dear. So this is like a nightmare from... But it's so great, though. Like, the idea of the movie and that whole scene is fantastic. I love it now, but... It's the Page Master. That is Mr. Hyde.
It is indeed.
Is that even where the candle like goes by his face, or is that before?
No, that's the moment just after he drinks the potion.
Yeah.
Just after he changes.
Yeah. Rocks his head back. You see a shadow on the wall.
Dr. Jekyll.
Dr.
J?
My name is Mr. Hyde!
You know what's really funny about that is, first of all, that's Spock.
It is
Mr.
Spock.
Spock.
Correct.
And the second thing is that
Mr. Leonard Nimoy.
you are a merciless torturer of children.
I am not a merciless torturer of children. I was a child myself.
Yes.
Well, that was Stop, Hey, What's That Sound? And you got full marks. Well done.
Hey, that never happens.
Let's talk about context.
Well, let's talk about what movie we're watching today.
Yes. Today we will be watching the classic 1982 haunted house thriller Poltergeist.
Poltergeist.
Or Poultry Gust.
It's Poltergeist.
Don't say that 3 times. I don't know what the fuck's going to appear.
You have to just look at that spelling on the box and go, if Betelgeuse is Beetlejuice, then
Betelgeuse.
Poltergeist must be Poltergeist.
So this is, as you said in the intro, this is quite unique of an episode. I think we're on, episode 24? And we've never done a movie that one of us has seen and the other one hasn't before. Mm-hmm. This is new. So you have not seen Poltergeist.
I have nothing to contribute to context.
You have nothing to... Well, to be honest, I don't really remember the first time I saw Poltergeist because it's just always been in the background. I remember as a kid I wasn't allowed to watch it. And then when I did, it scared the shite out of me. Mm-hmm. But I remember being quite a bit older and
the movie was a lot shorter. Sorry, it was the way you said older. Maybe
yes.
Thinking that.
And investigate Man on the Moon and investigating the sequels. Poltergeist 3 is not very good. I would not recommend going anywhere near that because the last time I tried to watch it, which was not that long ago, I just couldn't get through it. But Poltergeist 2 was the introduction of the not personification, but the human incarnation of the beast, which is the poltergeist. The poltergeist, the main antagonist of the first Poltergeist. His name is Reverend Henry Kane, played by Julian Beck, and he absolutely terrified me. So yeah, Poltergeist 2 it's an okay movie, but that guy creepy as all fuck. But this movie is pretty good on the scares. But it's a bit of an anomaly because it's directed by Tobe Hooper, who you remember I used to call Toe Pooper.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. My context for this movie is the thing that stands out is you used to say Toe Pooper.
Yeah, because I mispronounced his name, which has never happened before and never happened since.
But why would Toe Pooper be his name?
Because it's spelled Tobe, Tobe.
Right.
Tobe Hooper.
But like you weren't saying Tobe Hooper, you were saying Toe Pooper.
It sort of ran into each other.
Like someone who poos out toes.
Yes, I got it. Thank you very much.
Squeezing toes out of their leathery rectum.
Oh my God, leathery rectum. Leathery rectum. You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. Patent pending.
Today's episode is sponsored by Toe Poop. It's There's pieces of comedy there. Put them together. Make something out of it.
Make something out of it. Yeah. So let's go watch Poltergeist. Let's go watch Poltergeist. Roll it.
I apologize. I love 80s movies.
You do?
I do.
Are you saying that like genuinely? Or?
Yes.
Oh. So this is...
They've got a certain charm that even when you haven't seen one, like, you know, and you're watching it now, you can see all the problems, but, you know, they're 80s movies. It still feels like an 80s movie.
So this is the thing. This is the first time that we're watching a movie that you haven't seen and I have. So I get to ask you, how do you like it?
I did like it. There's all the usual sort of, I don't know, complaints that I have about child actors or certain line deliveries that were probably perfectly acceptable back then that would just be sort of cheesy now, like things that they say,
So
or
my
that don't
question-
feel genuine. But like, it's an 80s movie, and it was a lot of fun. And what was your question? What do you want to ask me? Go on, cut across me, you twat.
So my question is, you said something to me just as we finished watching it there, and the credit came up that said a Steven Spielberg production.
It said a Steven Spielberg film
It said a Steven Spielberg production.
at the end of the movie.
Yes.
All right.
Because it couldn't say a Steven Spielberg film. There were sort of stipulations by the Directors Guild and all sorts of things. But I just want to ask you, watching that film just now, you've never seen it before, this first time, and I just want to know what it reminded you of. What sort of who do you think directed this film?
It's kind of funny because there are lots of Ghostbusters sort of feeling moments in there. I guess it's probably because of the effects and some of the music in there is kind of.
Yeah, I think they have Richard Edlund in common.
Yeah,
And it was around the same time, 82 to 84.
it's ILM.
It's ILM, yeah.
So that would there's
In terms of the aesthetic, in terms of the filmmaking style, the acting, the verite kind of
there
scenes
are
with the
definite
family.
Spielberg, moments, and even the peril feels very sort of
Right.
not it always stops just short of feeling like because if you were to say to me what would happen in a horror movie nowadays, one of those kids would have bitten it,
So that's the thing.
or one of the parents.
I think also in a horror movie back in those days, if you look at movies,
18 or something.
yeah, if you look at like the Amityville Horror or The Entity, or even The Changeling, there's it's a little bit more sort of nasty, I guess.
Yeah.
And I think the decision to keep everybody alive was a deliberate one because it's Amblin Entertainment. It is a Spielberg production, and Spielberg co-wrote the script and he came up with the story. So there is a sort of brand there. But
It's also got a very strong female lead.
Yeah.
She's very active and much more like her husband looks like he's falling apart all the time. His eyes are very black and he looks
Sunken.
like not in control at all. She's very in control. It kind of reminds you of some of the, Marion, maybe some of the just more in control Spielbergian.
for the
female.
layman, Sai is talking about Marion Ravenwood from Raiders of the Lost Ark, another Steven Spielberg film. I see this as part of perhaps a Spielbergian trilogy. There's Close Encounters, there's this, and there's E.T.
Yeah.
Right? They all share a very similar kind of aesthetic, and a suburban setting, and that kind of sort of that family unit, etc., etc.
Two are about aliens, one's about ghosts.
They're all about a family sort of overcoming these otherworldly kind of circumstances.
Yeah.
I feel like there's sort of thematic and aesthetic consistencies between the three movies, and I don't think that's an accident. I also think that they were all made sort of within years of each other. Actually, Poltergeist and E.T. were made both in 1982, released both in 1982. And I think the reason why Spielberg didn't direct this was because of E.T., that he couldn't be involved in two productions at the same time.
Yeah.
So my feeling is, and we'll get into this a little bit more in Trivia Corner, but my feeling is that Toby Hooper, I can't say his name properly anymore. Toby Hooper was sort of a director by proxy.
Yeah.
Because I think Spielberg wrote the story for this movie and co-wrote the script for this movie and wanted to direct it, but wasn't actually allowed to because of the rules of the Directors Guild.
Yeah.
Let's get into it.
So what's next? You want to do notes? You want to do notes? Let's do notes. You want to do dreams? Let's do dreams. So the first thing that I've written here is they don't fuck about. Right? Immediately, the TV goes static and a little girl comes downstairs and there's like a creepy little conversation that she has with the telly, right? And that's sort of that's nice because after that there's a lot of there's a lot of sort of preambling, as it were.
So that's the thing. It basically goes
It's a
by
taster.
a very similar Spielbergian structure. Okay, if you look at E.T., at the beginning of E.T., you've got E.T. landing,
Yeah.
and then you've got a lot of like family stuff.
Yeah.
Like it's not as much. It's like an evening until Elliot finds E.T. in the barn, and then you've got a movie like Jurassic Park, which starts off with a sort of a pre-bit.
Shoot her!
Yeah, shoot her, and then a lot of character stuff before we actually get to the T-Rex, attack,
Yeah.
which is the beginning of the second act.
And what's great about that movie is there's a lot of like philosophizing.
But also you get to know the characters intimately, and I feel like you see the kids like sort of messing about at the breakfast table. You have Diane and Steve in bed smoking pot and like giggling with each other.
Yeah,
and,
do you know what I wrote here about the pot thing?
Yeah.
The thing. I think I said this out loud to you as well. Was she goes, or she's talking,
Right.
and I'm like, toke on it. What a waste of a joint. Just toke on it, and I want to see the little bud go red. And where's the smoke? What are you doing?
So I identify with that a lot because the other night my wife came in from being out with the girls, as it
Yeah.
were, and where Robbie the kid sort of appears in the doorway.
Yeah.
And they're like giggling and smoking pot and whatever. So my wife and I were having a chat in bed, and suddenly my son appeared silhouetted in the doorway. And this is like
It's horrible when they do that.
1
isn't
or
it?
1:30 in the morning, and I was just thinking to myself, what if we decided to fool around? You know, what if that would have happened? And then it's never happened so far that a kid has like walked in on us. But my God, that could have happened.
Do
And
you not
it
have a lock on your door?
we don't close the door
Why
because
don't
we
you
want
close the
to
door?
be able to hear the kids. And what happens like
But your room is right next to them.
it's not though.
Oh, because you've got a room leading
yes,
to that room.
yes.
It's just a stupid conceit of apartments that were built that way.
But
for
at the
some
same
reason.
time, if we want to talk or we want to watch TV or whatever, they're far enough away that we don't disturb them.
That's fair.
So anyway, the point is that it's a freaky moment when your kid, who's all cute and adorable and everything, but suddenly appears silhouetted in the doorway and makes you jump 6 feet in the air.
Yeah.
So there was that. But what I'm saying is that there's a lot of that kind of thing that sort of brings you into the private lives of your characters, and it gets you invested in them. And then all the supernatural shit goes down, and there is no messing about with that. There's a little bit of like kind of discovery and wonder, which is, par for the course with Spielberg.
Yeah.
But then you've got, it just goes straight into the craziness.
Yeah.
And while a lot of other haunted house movies, even to this day, look at Conjuring 2, they kind of like drip feed you, and Woman in Black, they kind of drip feed you little bits of creepiness.
Yeah.
And then they start having incidents that sort of escalate each time.
Mm-hmm.
And this movie just like
It does not escalate.
straight into
it. Goes straight
into it, and there's ILM.
Yeah.
Right into it with the ILM stuff. So, but I appreciate that, and I've talked about this before with the movie that my wife and I made. It's very, very important to have that setup. I wrote down here the U.S. national anthem. Do you know the significance of that?
No.
Well, it's sort of. I'm not.
Of the anthem itself or the anthem in the movie?
The anthem being in the movie, because you hear it like 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
So what I read into that is that the Steve's boss says to him, "Oh, it's not ancient tribal burial grounds, right?"
Yeah.
So that idea is carried over into Poltergeist 2, where you find out that Cuesta Verde was actually built on top of ancient Indian burial grounds.
Mm-hmm.
My reading into that is that it was conceived to be ancient Indian burial grounds, and the point of the national anthem is to kind of comment on that.
That they sort of like took that
land, and the US took over Native American lands and built on top of their dead, etc., and that's the punishment, which is the reason why you've got the national anthem, and then the spirits come through.
That's very interesting. I actually read into it just about the whole. I thought it was a sort of scene setting sort of thing, because you've got a very like Americana neighborhood white picket fence
suburbia,
thing going on, and so it's sort of like, this is the American dream, and even in the American dream crazy shit happens, like
right.
that. I thought that was kind of But that's interesting what you're saying.
There's a
Okay.
lot of that kind of foreshadowing in the first act. Like, for example, Carol Ann's canary dies.
Yeah.
And they bury it in a box. And first of all, you've got the kids sort of learning a little bit about death, but also you've got Robbie who says when it decomposes, can we dig it up and see its bones? Which foreshadows the whole swimming pool thing, and then obviously the digging up of the swimming pool, which is
later on
a big deal.
In the climax of the movie, Diane is sort of outside and she slips into the empty swimming pool,
it's raining, so it's full.
So it's all muddy and it's very slippery, and she falls into the empty pool area. There's no pool there; it's just like dug out for it.
Yeah, but there is water in it.
There's water in it, yeah. And she, she's sort of like is inside this sort of pooled rainwater, muddy rainwater, and suddenly coffins and skeletons start like coming up from the earth and sort of scaring her, and that sequence is actually very drawn out. She almost climbs out, and then she slips back in, and then there's more skeletons, and there's more coffins.
Very Spielbergian, by the way. If you look at all of the Indiana Jones movies, again, I've said this before, but he loves pulling the pigtails of the audience. He loves to sort of to gross out, and that whole thing with Marion in Raiders when they're in the Well of Souls and there's the snakes, but then she sort of like runs into a room full of like skeletons that start clawing at her and etc. etc. So there's sort of notes of that in that finale. But I want to come back to the skeletons because there's a story behind that. Okay. Which is quite horrifying.
Well,
actually.
we've now given the listeners some context about what we're talking about.
Right.
So now later when you hark back to it, they'll go, "Oh yes, we did discuss this. Yes, thank you, boys."
Right. Why is there a poster of Alien in the kids' room? That was.
Why is there a clown in the kids' room?
Yes. Sorry, go on.
The flashing is epilepsy inducing. I'm talking about the static on the TV set.
Yeah, so there's a lot of that. There's a lot of effect. Yeah, there's a lot of flashing lights. The 4K came out this week.
Which you said you're not going to get because you think this transfer is fine.
You saw the transfer.
I'm not disputing that. I'm just saying how rare of a thing that is to come out of your mouth.
Yeah, because look, to be honest with you, if I'm watching the movie and it looks pin sharp and the colors look great and there's grain, there's no grain removal or anything like that. The Blu-ray looks fantastic. I really enjoyed the image in general, and the 4K is $25. So if I do want to upgrade at some point, it has been remastered, and they got rid of all those white speckles that are all over the print, and the colors have been regraded, etc., etc. But if I do want to buy it, I'll probably buy it when it goes down to sort of $10, right? Which some of these 4Ks
makes sense. Frugal.
Yeah. But anyway, on the front of the 4K box, there's a big yellow sticker on it that says "Warning: Epilepsy," because of flashing strobe lights, etc., etc. And while we were watching it this time round, we were watching it in the dark, which I insisted upon because it's a quote unquote scary movie. It's pretty intense, the strobe lighting. Yeah. But what's interesting is that that's an aesthetic that I attribute to Tobe Hooper. Like if you look at Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the aesthetic of that is very different, more earthy.
When did that come out?
74. So this is like 8 years before. So, but when watching something like Life Force, which I think came out in 86, I want to say, there's definitely all those bright lights and the blue and that sort of that whole thing of the sort of the wind machines blowing people's hair around, etc., etc. I told you also to take note of
Joe.
The black and white film on the TV was A Guy Named Joe, which Spielberg remade in 88 or 87 as Always.
Cool.
There you go. Just a little bit of trivia for you there. Yeah.
So the next thing that I've got written down, and you'll forgive me for saying this, is the tree vagina.
Yes.
So basically, the kid, Robbie, in his room is afraid of the tree outside the window. It looks like it's got faces on it. It looks like it's got actually a little mini erection there on the side. There's some stuff about that tree that I wouldn't like looking at outside my window. And in a very like I sat up and started paying attention. So there's this thing, the tree comes crashing through the window, grabs him, like engulfs him with like branches, like fingers, and pulls him outside and starts swallowing him. the parents run downstairs, they go outside, they see him in the tree, and then there's this shot of sort of like this aperture,
pocket.
opening pocket that is just like swallowing him. It's supposed to be a mouth, that sort of, but it just reminded me of what I've written as a tree vagina.
But that's what I'm talking about, just skirting over that for a moment.
Sure.
But that's what I'm talking about when I say that this movie doesn't mess around, because that is the first big incident.
The first scare, yeah.
Is that, the tree reaches in, grabs the kid out of his bed and pulls him outside and then tries to swallow him.
It's quite distressing.
Yeah. But that's the first big sort of incident, whereas, Conjuring might sort of take it easy in the first act.
Conjuring, all of the James Wan sort of Conjuring and Insidious movies.
So this is the thing, like James Wan likes to hide things in the corner of his frame.
Yeah.
And Ari Aster also likes to do that as well. I think it's something that shows restraint, makes you sit up and pay attention, makes you lean forward. This movie is unashamedly not doing that.
This jumps straight in. Even the thing with the chairs piling themselves up on top of the table, and then Diane sort of marking on the floor where the chairs have been moving from and to. Her reaction is very ecstatic and excited, and she's laughing
because she feels like she's discovered a phenomena.
Yeah, so there's no dread. And then suddenly this tree just like comes through the window, and it is scary, but it's not a horror movie.
So I feel like I feel like that was by design. I think they wanted a PG-13 rating before the PG-13 rating existed. So we've talked about how in 1984 you had the sort of the double whammy of Temple of Doom and Gremlins. Which basically, those two movies basically invented the PG-13, where Spielberg called up Jack Valenti and said, Jack Valenti being the head of the MPAA at the time, and they were friends. They had a relationship, and he said, you've got to have something in between PG and R. So Spielberg suggested the PG-13 rating, and that has basically been the sweet spot for a lot of movies ever since. And this movie ended up as a PG, which, I mean, the face peeling scene, the skeletons, etc., in the same way that in the UK, Temple of Doom got cut to shreds because of its content, but Temple of Doom got a PG. It didn't get a 15. And Poltergeist, I believe, got a PG in the US and a 15 in the UK. So it's very it's trying to fit itself into a category.
Yeah.
It's obviously not for kids, but at the same time, there is a kind of a family aspect to it where Spielberg's trying to push it towards the wider audience, but at the same time, there's content in there that is definitely not for a family audience. It's all about how to sell something, but this movie was very popular at the time, so
I can understand why. It's also very sort of effective in how it gets across its there's almost like there's a grief to what's going on, that Carol Ann, the little girl, disappears, and they can hear her, and they think, well, the dad at least thinks that she's dead or something, but he's not willing to say it.
She's crossed over.
That they think that that there's this. They don't want to say this thing, and then when Tangina comes in and she says, your daughter is alive and she's in this house, that moment of relief, right, that sort of flows out of the screen. Is like these are very relatable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even though the tree vagina is less relatable.
Carol Ann going missing and Robbie being in danger affected me slightly differently this time around, because
you're a parent. I'm
a parent, but also of kids with that kind of age difference.
Yeah.
Not the same ages exactly, because Robbie's supposed to be 8 and Carol Ann's supposed to be 5. But
they both look younger.
Right. So I've got a kid who's almost 5 and he's a boy, and I've got a kid who's 2.5 and she's a girl. So there's a sort of a relatability to that I could identify with the mother, with the father. And also that feeling of, there's a moment where Tangina says to the two of them, like, which of you is Carol Ann more afraid of?
Yeah.
Which of you is she more intimidated by? Who gives out the punishments? And it turns out to be the father.
No. She says, who are you more intimidated by? And Diane says, well, Steve always gives out the punishments. Right. And his reaction is very on point. Yeah. He goes, oh, come on.
I never spanked the kids.
But he also says, like, come on, give me a break. Like, that's not fair. Don't put that on me. I have to be the...
Someone has to be the disciplinarian, yeah.
But he's very cool with the kids. That's also something that they're very, very careful to set up. Because from the way that he looks in that sort of opening scene in front of the TV, the opening shot, where he's fallen asleep, you might think that he's a bit of a deadbeat dad. You might think that he's had too much to drink, like that, he's fallen asleep in front of the TV and his cup sort of spills onto a plate on the floor. Like, there are tones here of maybe that he drinks. And then there's this whole thing where, one of his buddies who's watching a ball game with him is bringing him beer. Yeah. And, there's like all of them are drinking beer in the middle of the day and they're like watching a game. Yeah, but maybe he's not.
It's an American thing, though. It's a Sunday and they're watching a ball game.
That's great, right? But I'm saying there's almost a disconnect. But then there's that scene where the two of them are in bed and she's smoking, breathing near the joint. There's sort of the relationship between them is explored. And then the kid comes into the room, like you said, and, he takes him on his back to the bedroom, gives him a piggyback, and he gets into bed with him and sort of, helps him count out the different distance between the lightning and the thunder. Yeah. And, his daughter says, there's a phone call for you, Daddy. And he says, you tell them to take a message, right? It's a great little exchange,
that
right?
creeps me out because I feel like she was talking to the
poltergeist,
yeah,
right?
Yeah,
I thought so too.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that his reaction to his kids and then how he reacts when they're in danger sort of puts him on a very different footing from a dad, like, let's say, from Stranger Things, right? Which is a show that is very heavily influenced by movies like this from this time period. Mike's dad is very awful just in how detached and boring and gormless he is and not connected to what's going on with his family and how much his wife... rolls her eyes when he talks all the time, every season. I think that's a drinking game that we could maybe make up. But my point is that, he is very involved in it. And, just to finish the thought and to loop back around to what we were saying in that scene where she says, who are you more afraid of? Yeah. He takes that personally because, he has a very good relationship with the kids. And I also, if I were asked which one of us are the kids more scared of, probably me, because I'm more of the hothead and I tell them off more, right? Yeah. Shosh is very sort of zen and calm and collected and,
I don't think my kids are scared of either of us. I think that basically the issue is with my kids is that they don't really give a shit. They're like,
Oh no, I don't think that my kids give a shit either. I tell my eldest to do things and I get annoyed with him and he goes, no, and he just does what he likes, right? But I'm saying... Right. I'm saying if I were asked the question, right, I'd say it was me. But, I do have a very good relationship with my kids and they enjoy playing with me and I enjoy playing with them and we do like, people piles and stuff like that. And if I were to hear that, I'd go, oh, come on as well. I'd also take issue with it, even though it's true. So after the whole tree vagina incident, right?
Yeah.
Why is no one staying with Robbie? Why is he's got a cut on his forehead? Where at the top of the bridge of his nose, he's covered in mud and blood and who knows, tree vagina ick. And like, nobody's staying with him. He's obviously in shock.
Because they get called to Carol Ann. She's been left by herself and then she gets taken.
Absolutely.
So
but
they're distracted.
But then, they go looking for her and they leave him by himself again.
Yeah.
Someone should be carrying him, taking him. I'm just saying. There's some parenting holes here. They should take note.
Yeah. Okay.
I just think it's not realistic, right? You wouldn't if your child had just gone through something like that. You wouldn't kill a baby or whatever it is.
And steal a baby.
Or whatever. Okay. I made it better.
Yeah. We'll move on to Trivia Corner in a minute, but there's a couple of things that I noticed. The jump cut.
Yeah.
Which we'll come back to. But
they just appear outside their neighbor's house. Or something.
there's a moment where they put Carol Ann on the floor where the circle's been made.
Yeah.
Where the circle's been drawn, and she slides across the floor, and you see Steve sitting up against the wall, and he's kind of like shell shocked. And then suddenly there's a jump cut to the not a jump cut exactly because it's not the same shot, but it suddenly cuts.
It cuts very oddly.
Very oddly.
I went, what the fuck?
Yeah, apparently that's something to do with Pizza Hut, that they said something about not liking Pizza Hut and they needed to cut it out. But because you can't just, export a new version,
yeah.
So they probably just had to literally splice it out of the movie and just deal with however that left it.
Oh dear.
Which sucks. Anyway, so that was the jump cut. This house is clean. You looked at me, because that is one of the things that you were talking about in the intro,
yeah,
or the cold open, because that's something that Ace Ventura says.
What did I say to you?
Losers,
yeah,
losers.
Yes! Yes! Oh, yeah! Can you feel that, buddy? Huh? 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 I have exorcised the demons. This house is clear. Losers? Get him out of here! Losers! Let's go, Ace.
I also noticed that there's a similarity to a movie that was released around the same time called The Entity, which is about a woman who gets repeatedly raped by a ghost.
Oh dang!
Or by an entity, rather. I saw the movie. It's not amazing, but there's a moment in this movie where Diane gets pinned to the bed, and you can see that something invisible is trying to pull up her shirt. And it's not terribly explicit, but I can see that.
I also thought that as well.
It leads me to believe that either it's Toby, it's either Toby Hooper's sensibility.
I don't understand why you're trying so hard to say his
Toe
name.
Pooper.
We've already said Toe Pooper, and that's what his name is.
Yeah.
Be an adult about it, please.
It's either Hooper's sensibility, Hooper, or it's
now if you're gonna say his last name, you might as well just say it's Pooper's sensibility. Like, come
Yes.
on, be an adult.
Can I just get this thought out, please?
Sure.
For fuck's
Sorry,
sake?
yeah, no, you're right. Go on.
Yeah. So it's either
You know what I was thinking?
It's either the director who is credited sensibility, or it's Spielberg allowing himself to be a bit more off the wall because he's directing by proxy.
Yeah.
Like his name isn't on the movie in that way, but he did write it anyway. I also noticed that when Diane comes face to face with the Beast in the sort of post finale, there's an MGM lion roar. Did you notice that?
Yeah, I noticed that too.
Okay. Also, when Steve comes to the house, there is an Exorcist style shot, which is the Exorcist coming to the outside of the house with all the fog and the. And
Joe, that's another film that I've never seen. You want to watch The Exorcist?
We could do The Exorcist.
Okay.
That would be a good movie to do for this Halloween season.
Bonanza.
There is a
Hallonanza. Hamonaptra.
So at the very, very end, there is a moment where Dana is dropped off by a fancy red sports car when everything's going down outside the house.
This is the eldest child.
The eldest child.
Who spends most of the movie shaking her head, wringing her hands, and crying snottily, grossly.
And she screams when she sees all of the flashing lights.
Yeah.
And you can see quite clearly on her neck that she's got a hickey. I thought that was a nice little touch.
Oh, well, that she'd been with her boyfriend.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was a nice little touch. Anyway, that's all my notes until Trivia Corner.
Right, speed round. Here we go. The next
you'll rattle them off for me. I'll fucking buzz it, okay?
Okay, I will tell you. So, the next one I've got written here is just one word: forehead.
Whom's?
I've forgotten her name, but the woman who's like the medium, who's not the medium.
Tangerina.
No, not
not
Tangina.
Dr. Lesh.
Dr. Lesh, yeah. So she has a very big forehead. Right, moving on. The line, "It's not an ancient Indian burial ground." Really? Okay. The Beast. Satan or Cain? Because here's what's interesting. It's presented in this one like it's the Beast. Like it's Satan or something.
Right.
But in the next movie, you're saying it's a crazy preacher called Cain.
So
who I looked at pictures of, and it's quite scary looking.
Yeah. Julian Beck was dying of stomach cancer when he made the movie. He died really not long after. So that skeletal appearance of his, it's really interesting that he agreed to kind of use himself in that way. And he is the source of many childhood nightmares.
Sure.
But the thing is that you see, there's that scene where the ghostly apparition comes down the stairs.
Yeah.
And on the video afterwards that they've shot, you can see all of these ghosts coming down the stairs that you couldn't see, in real life, as it were, real life of the movie. And they're all wearing hats. And it leads me to believe that they're all Cain's followers.
Yeah, that's what I thought as well while I was watching it.
Right. So and there's
you said it was a cult or something.
Yeah, it was a cult. It was a cult, and he leads his cult down in underground, and they and they starve, and they die. But it's a whole thing.
Here's the thing, right?
Yeah.
Indian burial ground. So wouldn't they be Indians? I
think that the fact that the house was built on ancient Indian burial grounds, which I believe that stuff is all more clearly established in the sequel. But I think that awakens something, which opens the door to the other side, which allows anything to sort of come through. And obviously, if the cult was also underground, so they would come up too, I guess. But anyway, so that was my thought on that. But go on, carry on.
Problem is, right, the horror beats are all done, right? So, for example, there's the scene where the clown's on the chair, and then he hears a rustling. Robbie, the child, hears a rustling. He wakes up. The clown's gone. He looks on one side of his bed, under that side of the bed. He's not there, and then it sort of slows down a little bit as he very cautiously lifts up, the covers around what's covering underneath the bed, and then there's nothing there. Music stops, camera pans up, clown's sitting behind him. Right? So that's been done over and over again. Here's the thing. This was probably one of the first ones to do that.
This was 1982.
I'm sure back in the day, this was the shit.
Right. The idea is that you have an ending. What is very easily identifiable to most viewers as a finale.
Yeah.
And then you have a second finale.
Yeah.
So you can see that if the camera's taking a little bit too long to cut, or the movie's taking a little bit too long to end, nowadays with our sort of knowledge of film history, that there's a coda coming.
Yeah.
But I'm sure the audiences in 1982 probably weren't expecting it. That's it. So yeah.
The rest of my notes are for VFX.
Okay, so
Caval corner.
Cavalcade. Let's go to Trivia Corner. Trivia Corner. When you're talking about the directorial dispute, so I've got here a little bit about that. Steven Spielberg worked on this film and E.T. literally back-to-back. Principal photography on Poltergeist ended in August of 1981. Then Spielberg took a few weeks off and began to work on E.T., while Tobe Hooper spent 10 weeks in the editing room compiling his initial cut. Spielberg did supervise the visual effects for both films simultaneously, which were produced at Industrial Light and Magic under the supervision of Richard Endeland and Dennis Muren. And once post-production work on Poltergeist began in early 1982, Spielberg was in total control. He was responsible for the final edit of the film. Spielberg's usual editor, Michael Kahn, edited this film, while Carol Littleton edited E.T. The final sound mixes and loops, the supervision of the visual effects, and the selection of Jerry Goldsmith as the composer of the score. Poltergeist and E.T. opened to theaters nationwide only a week between each other during the summer of 1982. Poltergeist on June 4th and E.T. 1 week later on June 11th. And Spielberg later said if E.T. was a whisper, Poltergeist was a scream. When questioned about who had the greater control over this film, Steven Spielberg or Tobe Hooper, Spielberg replied, "Tobe isn't a take charge sort of guy. If a question was asked and an answer wasn't immediately forthcoming, I'd jump in and say what we could do," which basically means
what they should do.
Yeah, I directed it. Tobe would nod in agreement, and that became the process of our collaboration. Co-producer Frank Marshall spoke out to the press and claimed the creative force of the movie was Steven. Tobe was the director and was on set every day, but Steven did the design for every storyboard and was only absent for 3 days during the shoot because he was in Hawaii with George Lucas. Hooper later claimed...
Doing what?
Well, they would go on holiday after the release of each film so that they could escape the craziness.
Really?
I would imagine...
Okay.
Yeah, that's where Indiana Jones came up. Because they were on holiday in Hawaii, and Spielberg said, I really want to direct a James Bond movie. It was supposed to be... He wanted to do For Your Eyes Only. He was campaigning to do the next one. And George Lucas said, hey, I've got something better than that. I've got a guy called Indiana Jones. Or it was Indiana Smith at the time. And I would imagine that this was... around about the release of Indiana Jones, or around about the release of Raiders in '81, that they went to sort of escape all of that because they weren't sure if it was going to be a hit.
Right.
Hooper later claimed that he did half the storyboards. Spielberg then sent a letter to Hooper to clarify matters. It read, thus, regrettably, some of the press has misunderstood the rather unique, creative relationship you and I shared throughout the making of Poltergeist. I enjoy your openness in allowing me, as a writer and a producer, a wide berth for creative involvement, just as I know you were happy with the freedom you had to direct Poltergeist so wonderfully. Through the screenplay, you accepted a vision of this very intense movie from the start, and as the director, you delivered the goods. You performed responsibly and professionally throughout, and I wish you great success on your next project. In a 2007 Ain't It Cool News interview, Zelda Rubinstein discussed her recollections of the shooting process. She said, Steven directed all 6 days she was on set. Toby set up the shots and Steven made adjustments. She also alleged that Hooper allowed some unacceptable chemical agents into his work.
What does that mean?
And that during her audition...
drugs.
Yeah,
okay.
and that during her audition, Toby was only partially there. Comments from actor James Caron...
Hang on, that is absolutely unacceptable.
What, that he was stoned?
No, not that he was stoned.
That she said that he was stoned?
No, that he was stoned. He obviously knows what a joint being smoked should look like, and he couldn't give his actress any fucking pointers on it.
Oh my goodness.
Please
okay.
continue.
Yes. Actor James Caron, concerning a 25th anniversary Q&A event which both attended, categorized Rubinstein's remarks as unfair to Hooper. He said that she laid into Toby, and I don't know why. Toby was kind to her. But the thing is that Rubinstein said that he was definitely stoned, and she was directed by Spielberg. That's the long and short of it. And that's what I said to you at the beginning. I asked you what you felt the aesthetic and tone was, and I think that there's a mix, because as I said, there's a lot of like sort of life force, what would become life force, that kind of visual style and the et cetera, and some of the nastier elements I would attribute to Hooper as well, having seen things like Life Force and Texas Chainsaw, but there's a overall Spielberg aesthetic that sort of dominates the movie,
permeates.
Yeah, and also the fact that he wrote the script is obviously like a big deal.
Yeah.
Okay, this one is kind of tragic. But there's a long history of sort of discussion about a poltergeist curse. Okay. Largely because 4 of the cast members died between 1982 and 1988. What? 22-year-old Dominic Dunn, who played Dana. Uh-huh. So she was strangled by her boyfriend in her driveway in 1982.
Whoa.
They were exes, and he wanted to get back together and she didn't, and he strangled her in the driveway.
Jesus.
Yeah. Of the other 3 deaths, all were the results of long-term chronic illnesses. Julian Beck, as I said, died of stomach cancer in 1985. Will Sampson, who played the Native American character in Poltergeist 2 and in Cuckoo's Nest, so he died of complications from a heart-lung transplant. Heather O'Rourke, who played Carol Ann, died in 1988 after Poltergeist 3 at age 12 from a cardiac arrest caused by septic shock from a bowel obstruction caused by intestinal stenosis after being misdiagnosed with Crohn's disease in 1987.
Oh man.
Yeah. So yeah, it's I always get like a sort of a pang when I watch these movies, because I always see Dominique Dunn and I go like, this is the only movie she ever appeared in, and it's quite tragic. She was only 22.
Did she appear in the second one?
No, she was killed in 1982.
Ah, right.
Like when the movie was released.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
Well, thanks for keeping it light, Johnny.
Let's talk about the jump cut. There is a jump cut from the scene where Diane is explaining to Steven about the feeling you get when the spirit pulls you across the floor. The scene jumps mid-sentence to the scene where they are both on their neighbor's doorstep. Again, in mid-sentence. The reason for the cut was because in the original scene, Steven says how he hates Pizza Hut. The scene was edited rather crudely after Pizza Hut took offense. This is something that I wanted to address, which I said before when we were talking about the pool scene with the skeletons. So apparently, real human skeletons were used in the swimming pool scene since the crew decided it would be too complicated and expensive to get fake ones. JoBeth Williams was not made aware of this until after the scene was finished. Now, I'm not sure that...
Several violations in this movie.
But I'm not sure that anybody on the crew knew. I'm not sure that Toby Hooper? I'm not sure that Toby Hooper knew. It wouldn't surprise me if he did, since he was like blasted out of his head for the entire shoot. But I'm not sure that Spielberg knew. But I think it was a sort of a prop master or somebody that just sort of took it on themselves to sort of like make budget cuts.
What did he do? Exhume bodies?
Bruce Casson, who is identified as the film's assistant prop master, said they came from Carolina Biological, naming a medical and science supply company that sold human skeletons mainly for use in medical schools back in the 1980s. Replica skeletons did not exist, as far as I remember at the time, Casson said. Now they're common and relatively cheap, and the rush to the bottom line for cost will dictate. Holy fuck.
That is nuts. Is there anything on how she reacted to that?
Yes.
Lawsuit?
In an interview, JoBeth Williams, who played Diane Freeling, said, "You have to understand that this sequence took probably 4 or 5 days to shoot. So I was in mud and goop all day, every day, for like 4 or 5 days, with skeletons all around me as I was screaming. In my innocence and naivete, I assumed that these were not real skeletons. I assumed they were prop skeletons made out of plastic or rubber. I found out, as did the whole crew, that they were using real skeletons because it's far too expensive to make fake skeletons out of rubber. And I think everyone got real creeped out by the idea of that."
No, that's disgusting.
A spokesperson for Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer denied the claim. But obviously it's been corroborated. There's another crew member here who said that he acquired a number of actual biological surgical skeletons they're for hanging in classrooms in study. I think the bones are acquired from India. At any rate, we got 13 of these, and we dressed them so they looked not like bleached, clean, bolted together skeletons, but instead disintegrating cadavers. And added sculptured rubber and things to them so that they would have a kind of dramatic, leering, spooky aspect and not be dull. JoBeth Williams also said that the use of the skeletons created such an unease around the Poltergeist set that it carried over into the making of the sequel, Poltergeist 2, The Other Side. She added that co-star Will Sampson, a member of the Muskogee Creek Nation, performed an exorcism on the set of that film.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And disturbing.
Yeah. I just that was a long segment. I just wanted to
disgusting.
Yeah, I just wanted to get that out because there's a lot of really interesting stuff going on there.
Jesus.
The theme music is known as Carol Ann's Theme by Jerry Goldsmith. It was originally titled Bless This House and was written like a lullaby as a contrast to the horror in the film. It is kind of creepy in certain places. There are lyrics, apparently, which can be found on the internet. Poltergeist's special effects and score were both nominated for Oscars, but both categories lost to Steven Spielberg's E.T. the Extraterrestrial.
There you go. Everybody wins. Well, Spielberg, not everybody wins.
Originally, as Toby Hooper, Steven Spielberg, and the screenwriters were plotting out the screenplay, Carol Ann was going to be killed in the first act and then haunt the house in the second.
Oh, dang.
They eventually decided this was too dark, no shit, and opted to have her kidnapped by the ghosts. In fact, eventually so many of the dark elements were removed because Spielberg wanted a PG rating, so the film could run as a double feature in theaters with the concurrently released E.T. the Extraterrestrial. So much so that there was only one death, Tweety the Bird, in the final movie, and only a couple of injuries.
Yeah, I thought that the guy ripping off his face was going to be a fatality there.
Yeah. In addition to the 2 times the beast appeared in the movie, the face that appeared in the closet and the creature that guarded the kid's door, the script had it appearing during the scene where the family and investigators are looking at the tape of the manifestation. The giant ghost that they saw visually slowly resolved itself into the image of a face of a cruel old man known in the sequels as Reverend Henry Kane.
Interesting. They should have done that because that would have created a nice
continuity. Yeah. JoBeth Williams had a supernatural experience during the making of the film. Whenever she came home from filming, the pictures on the walls of her house were crooked. Every time she fixed them, they would hang crooked again. Zelda Rubinstein also had an experience when a vision of her dog came to her and said goodbye to her. How did it do that exactly.
Did it sort of lift its paw and wave, or
Perhaps. Hours later, her mother called her and told Rubenstein that her dog had passed away that very day.
keep it light, make something up.
So that's it. That's all I've got. That was Trivia
The Trivia
Corner. This is why I'm so disappointed. They re-released the movie on 4K this week, and there were no new extras. And the extras on the Blu-ray are very sort of general to the. It's a kind of a documentary about supernatural occurrences more than about the movie. And I feel like this deserves and requires a proper, one of those hour and a half retrospective documentaries to really unpack all of the shit that happened around the making of this movie. Who directed it? Who really directed it? Like the various deaths that happened, the various supernatural occurrences, the argument over the rating, etc., etc. Zelda Rubinstein, all of that stuff is just really, really interesting to me. So I figured I'd give it a bumper trivia corner.
No, that was great. It's just horrific, most of this stuff. So
Anyway.
as we're running sort of low on time, I think that we'll do a speedy cavalcade.
No, go for it. Whatever time you need. Don't speed it up on my account.
We'll speed of hand.
Speed of hand.
Come with me and step into the spine-tingling confusion known as Sigh's rambling cavalcade of nonsense.
So, lovely. So, basically, there's a really nice visual effect right off the bat with the arm coming out of the TV.
Yeah.
Which is just, good old animation and compositing.
Yeah, I love those old opticals.
I love it so much.
They're so nostalgic for me. I really love that.
But it's also it's just so fun to look at.
Yeah. It's very Ghostbusters-y as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah.
I also really appreciate the beast effects at the end. The one that's guarding the door.
Yeah.
They were probably recorded underwater to get the flowing hair effect, if I'm not mistaken. It looks very much
Most
like it was
likely, yeah.
recorded in a water tank. The hair is. This is the giveaway: is the hair and whatever tatters are sort of hanging off it, are sort of floating ethereally around it. And the way that they would get that effect is by putting a puppet in a water tank.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
how was the stake done? Is it this? I'm thinking like how I would do it is either have it puppeteered with wires that then get removed, or to have some sort of what's it called? Animatronic sort of armature that's then pulling it along the table. Like
So
how's that done?
I'll tell you, it was a real stake. They laid it over a slot, which is cut between the tiles and the countertop. Two wires were fastened to the bottom of the stake, and a special effects operator hidden under the counter simply moved the wires to make the stake crawl like a caterpillar.
That's what I was saying with the wires. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think they did
hidden
that
underneath.
with the set of the kitchen. That they did that with the chairs that they had like wires underneath the floor, and because the wires are so thin, so that you can't really see the slit.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that would probably be the same way that they did all of the Muppets and all of Yoda stuff, all of the Yoda stuff in Empire Strikes Back.
The
is
floor
that they
is
would
always
have,
raised.
Yeah, that they would have a raised set and they would have puppeteers underneath it. Yeah.
That's kind of what I was thinking when I was watching it. Now this is interesting, and we'll leave it. No, two more things.
Okay.
So there's the flying object sequence. Which it's very
they're flying in a circle.
Yeah, as you can tell, it's like an optical shot. But there's some interesting stuff about that.
It's very similar aesthetically to the, and I've said aesthetically a lot here because I can't think of another word to describe it.
That's the word.
Yeah, it's very similar to the shot in E.T. when E.T. makes the balls rotate.
Yeah.
Here you go.
So this shot the sequence took 9 months for the optical department to get right.
Holy hell.
And there's a reason for it, is that they had a wide range. I'm reading now, just in case anyone's listening, that you want to know like how a lot of the information that I get is mostly pulled from my understanding of visual effects from that time, but also there are websites that are dedicated to sort of breaking this stuff down. ILM are very, very open, and if you go to ilm.com/visual effects/ name of the movie, Poltergeist, whatever it is, or Ghostbusters, you can usually find some kind of breakdown on how they did certain shots. So this is where I got my information from here. So it basically says, with a wide range of tonalities in the background and dozens of objects flying in and out of the frames, Richard Edlund called this the most difficult matting sequence he ever worked on. This shot was tedious because of the nature of the optics department during that era. If one element of a shot wasn't perfect after running the shot through the optical printer, the team had to start over. In the end, Poltergeist is a great representation of the kind of movie magic ILM is known for. I think that there's some stuff there that still makes me go, whoa, when I haven't seen an effect before. Did you see me when the house broke apart, when it imploded? I sat up and I
sucked into the...
I was like, what the fuck? How did they do that? Right. So there's some interesting stuff on this here. To accomplish the imploding house, ILM went through months of testing and development because they had to really figure out how to get this done practically. And eventually not practically in the shot, but, there are practical elements here. You can tell this is before, we were CGing things, right?
Right.
So, to accomplish this, what they did was they took... sort of like a very detailed model of the house with steel cables, and it all extended into a sort of funnel-like construction, which was set up and rigged to a vacuum system to capture any dust and fragments that wasn't being pulled through that funnel by the cables. So it was literally sucking things through this hole, which creates that sucking effect that makes it look like it's being pulled in. It was all shot with a high-speed camera, and it was done in one take. And then the actors shot their part on a blue screen set.
What's great is that you can't see the join.
You can't, and the you can tell that it's an optical shot because of the quality of the
because it degrades. Yeah.
But here's the thing: is that they were putting it. They spent a long time rotoscoping the shot in and putting it together using an optical printer, and I think that's really cool that they found such a novel way to put that together. Yeah. And then there's one more shot that I thought was really cool. This is not a special effects shot. It's a practical shot. But it made me go, oh, movie magic, right? How did the headstones sort of come up out of the floor in the kitchen, and they were spinning around and all of that, and like the earth underneath the kitchen floor is upset as well. Like it's a very well put together practical shot. And I'm like going... wires, people underneath, pushing it up. Like, I'm trying to figure it out, but I kind of don't want to know. Like, that shot also just made me go, whoa, because there's some really cool stuff that now you just wouldn't see because they'd CG that sort of thing. They'd make it a visual effect. And it's just, I'm sure, I don't know that that's cheaper anymore. I'm sure that it could be, cheaper to sort of destroy the set at the end, you know? Anyway,
they got to take it down anyway, but the issue is resetting
and doing it in one shot. Yeah. So anyway, that's the end of my VFX cavalcade.
Come with me and step into the spine-tingling confusion known as Sigh's rambling cavalcade of nonsense.
Okay, well that was really interesting. This movie is kind of it's always the anomaly for me. On my shelf, I've got all of the Spielberg movies I own on one shelf, and Poltergeist is there because I consider this a Spielberg movie. It's the Spielberg movie that wasn't. But
also was.
Yeah, but like in terms of certain visual,
it's Schrodinger's Spielberg.
In terms of certain visual cues, if you watch this back to back with E.T. and Close Encounters, it's unmistakable. So yeah, I enjoy this as a Spielberg movie.
I enjoy this as a movie that I've not seen before. That's an 80s movie that I'm happy to say is still fun to watch and holds up pretty nicely. So yeah. I think that's really cool. I enjoyed that a lot.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's nice to introduce you to something and have you actually enjoy it.
Well, because I'm still looking, I'm able to do that thing that a lot of people aren't able to do, which is to put myself back in that frame of mind when I was watching and discovering things that were from the 80s, but in the 90s.
But my point is that like when we were watching the movie, I was kind of nervous. I'm always like sort of looking at you sideways because whenever I introduce somebody to a film and they don't enjoy it, it kind of makes me feel responsible.
Yeah. You know, I get that with Shosh a lot.
Yeah. I get that with my wife as well.
Yeah, but it's not something you need to worry about. Like, if I don't like a movie, then we'll just tell your mother that we ate it all.
We ate it all. So I really enjoyed the fact that you enjoyed it, if that makes sense.
Of course it does.
And it was really cool because over the years I've been sort of like collecting and amassing information about the sort of behind the scenes stuff, and it was nice to be able to sort of relate that over to you and have you go so I hope that all the listeners got a similar kind of experience. And thank you very much for joining us today. That was a fun episode to do.
It was a fun episode. Thank you very much to the listeners, by the way. Big shout out to our listeners. We have a couple of regular listeners, Shakus and his wife. Shakus, as he will be known. And he and his wife apparently sit down of an evening when an episode comes out, and they listen to it, and they laugh together, and they pause it, and they debate what we're talking about, and that sort of thing is a lot of fun. They also, Shakus also posts on the Facebook group, which is a lot of fun. So thank you very much for your support, and any of you out there who are listening, please feel free to do the same thing.
Contact
just
let us know.
Subscribe.
Tell us
rate.
what movies you want us to do. Yeah, as well.
Tell us what movies you want us to do. They all go on the list. The list just gets longer. It's not getting shorter.
Yeah. And now we've just added one, The Exorcist.
Lovely.
We thank you for listening and hope you have a wonderful rest of your day or evening.
I actually couldn't give two shits if they enjoy the rest of their day. Is that okay to say? I feel like being honest with the audience is sort of like a must in this sort of situation.
Why you got to do that?
What?
Why you got to? No, we're being nice.
I'm not going to pretend that I care what happens in their day-to-day lives. Like, I care that they come and they listen and they give me free stuff, right? But, I don't...
What free stuff do you get?
Well, I don't get free stuff, but I would like to get free stuff.
We don't even have a Patreon.
If we had a Patreon, then, we might be able to get free stuff.
Look, you said that you want to mention your listeners, you want to mention Shakus, and you want to give them a shout-out and all that kind of stuff. But normally podcasters mention them in the context of Patreon because they're being paid to. Shakus isn't paying me a penny.
I think he would if there were a Patreon.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
We'll talk about that afterwards, off the air. Bye.
Bye. What's our seat number?
Do 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 do.